Hi everyone, welcome to the third workshop in Manage Engine AD Manager Plus online workshop series. Thank you so much for your continued support and participation and also for joining us here today. This is Stuti Mehrotra from the AD Manager Plus team. Now before we start the workshop, I would like to remind you that if you have any questions throughout the course of this workshop, feel free to drop in your queries in the chat box you see on your screen. Now, in the previous two workshops, we learned about user management. We learned how to create, modify, and delete users individually as well as in bulk. We saw how the advanced AD Manager Plus features such as CSV import and templates can take your AD woes away. Today, we'll be discussing about two core topics, delegation and workflow. The Active Directory Help Desk delegation feature of AD Manager Plus allows you to delegate certain roles or tasks to your help desk technicians or HR officials or basically any AD users so as to take some of the burden off the administrators. This works in a very secure manner. And the workflow feature allows you to define a review approval workflow mechanism to specify how management tasks like account creation, modification, AD cleanup, etc. will be executed. So you can have multiple levels in this customizable workflow structure such as requesters, reviewers, approvers, and executors. So this is a bit about today's session. Now let us see what topics are we going to study. So these are the various topics that we are going to see today. Firstly, we have enforce attribute level restrictions for account creation and modification as per organizational policies. So while you are delegating a particular task to a help desk technician, you would want to enforce certain restrictions on that because you can't give complete control just like that. So in order to make this a secure practice, we have certain restrictions which can be even up to the attribute level. So that we'll study over here. Next up, we'll see about how to create a user management console for IT technicians and branch heads to create and manage their team's accounts. You create an altogether different console in AD Manager Plus for these people so that they can create and manage their accounts. Then we'll study how to restrict the administrators of a location, of a particular location, a particular OU, from modifying accounts of other locations. Then we'll see the ticket-based execution of AD tasks with multi-level workflow. Then we'll see approval-based group subscription for enhanced security. And last but not the least, we'll see how to auto-assign tickets to right technicians whenever a request is raised. So this is a bit about today's session. Now I'll take you to the URL. I'll copy and paste this into the chat box, and you can simply copy and paste this in your browser window. So you can play along with the application as I demonstrate all the tasks over here. You can see all these tasks, perform all these tasks all by yourself. So this is admp.cloudapp.net. I've shared it with you in the chat box. And once you come over here, it will ask you for a username and a password. The username that you can provide is going to be ADMP, all in small letters. ADMP, and the password will be workshop, W capital, and rest of the letters all small, workshop. I have also shared these credentials with you in the chat box. And then the third option is log on to. So make sure that you are selecting AD Manager Plus authentication over here because workshop is a domain that we have configured in the application, and we want you to do local authentication over here, not the domain authentication. So after you are done with entering your credentials, log in. Now this is how our application looks like. This is the dashboard view. Today's session is all about delegation, so let me quickly proceed to this AD delegation tab that you see over here, that fourth tab. I go to AD delegation. Now, how do we go about this entire process of delegation? How do I delegate specific tasks to specific help desk technicians in a secure manner? I'll firstly be creating a role, and then I'll be mapping that role onto a technician. First of all, let us see what do I mean by a role and a technician. So a role is nothing but a set of tasks that I want a particular technician to be able to do. It could be creating users, modifying users, or whatever. So that particular set of tasks is called a role. And then who is a technician? A technician is basically any AD user that you delegate a task to. So any AD user that you are trusting with the responsibility to do something in AD with this application will be referred to as a technician. So as I said, the process will be to create a role first and then map that role onto a technician. I'll go to help desk roles over here, this link. And here I'll see certain predefined roles. These all that you see are predefined roles in the application. If none of these roles by their description matches your requirement, you can very well go ahead and create a new role all for yourself. Here is the option to do that, create new role. So here I can specify the name of that role. Now let me give a name. I think it would be IT tech role. After I've given a name, if I want, I can provide a description for that. And here I'll choose which tasks do I want my help desk technician to be able to perform. So let's say I want the user, this particular technician, to be able to create users in single as well as in bulk. And I want him to be able to modify users, but only a single user. Say my requirement is like that I don't want my technician to be able to do CSV import and modify users in bulk. So I can very well do that. I can choose from any of these options as per my requirements. Now here also I can specify which aspects of the users, which attributes of the users do I want my technician to be able to modify. So do I want him to be able to reset the passwords? Do I want him to be able to change the group attributes, unlock users, move users? Whatever I want, I can just select over here. Exchange attributes, terminal services, everything. Now, just to make sure that the user doesn't get the bulk user modification privileges, I'm going to altogether deny bulk modification right over here. So after I have selected the tasks that I want my help desk technician to be able to perform, I'll simply save this role here. Before I do that, let me show you some other roles that the person can be assigned. In user management, you have these many. Then there are different categories. You have computer management, wherein you have how to, if you want the person to be able to create computers in single or in bulk, modify them, the template creation part. Then you have contact modification management. Then you have group management, mailbox management, and so on. You also have report generation tasks over here. If you want the user to be able to generate whichever reports, you can specify right here. Then certain administrator level tasks. So for me right now, all I want is to be able to, this help desk technician should be able to create certain things that I've already specified in user management. So after I'm done with that, I'm just going ahead and saving this role. Okay, this role name already exists, so let me call this IT Tech Role 1. So with this, I am successfully able to create the help desk role, IT Tech Role 1. Now the first part is over. Next would be to map this particular role onto a technician. So here I see I have a link that says help desk technicians. I click that. Now before I map this onto a particular technician, I should make a technician out of a user. How do I do that? Either I can choose from any of these technicians that are already configured, or I can add a new technician. So let me do that. I click add new technician, and over here it is showing me the options to select certain users from my AD. So I click the plus icon, And say I have a particular user called as HR_IT tech that I want to be able to modify and create the users. So I'll just select that particular technician over here. I'll use the search functionality. It's taking it longer to load. Seems like a lot of people are accessing it, which is a good thing. So over here we have HR_IT tech. I select that. So now this technician has been selected, and the next step would be to map on a role. So here it says select help desk roles. I'm going to select the role that I just created, which was IT tech role 1. Okay. And here I can specify which OUs do I want this user to be able to work under. Right now, let us leave it at all OUs, and I'm clicking on Save. Successfully created help desk technicians. So now this part is also over. I have successfully created a role and I have delegated it to a particular technician. Now let me see how this technician will be able to carry out all these tasks. For that, let me sign out and I'll sign in back from that person's, this HR_IT tech users credentials, which I happen to have. So this is the username. I know the password of this individual. And now I'll be selecting workshop because this person can only do a domain authentication. So I log in from his credentials, and as now you can see, the console has been entirely changed to suit his requirements. He was allowed these many tasks, and this is what the application will look like to him. He can create a single user, create bulk users, but for modification, he can only do so for a single user because we denied that. Let's go to CSV import. Here also you can see the modify users option doesn't show up. So I go back to user management. Now let me execute a particular task. Let's say I want to create a single user. I am this particular user. I am HR_IT tech. And as part of my responsibility, I am here to create a user. So say I create a user called as Daniel. Say it is Daniel P. So the rest of the attributes will get auto-populated, and I go to the account tab. I give this user a password. After that, I am all done, and I click create. After this user has been successfully created, I will sign out from the application and log back in as the admin. So we saw how we could delegate this particular role to a particular technician and how he was able to do the tasks that we delegated. Now what if after some point of time I need to edit a particular role? I need to revise the set of tasks that this particular AD user was able to perform. It's simple. I again go to help desk roles and I pick that particular task from that particular role from the list shown over here. IT tech role 1. I hit modify. This icon is for modification, and I can again just give new set of tasks, whatever I want. And again I can save the role. So this is how we can edit a role. Now we were talking about attribute level restrictions. What did I mean by that? Like here you can see for creating user, you have something called as user attribute privileges. So what we mean by that is we can see which of these particular attributes will a user be allowed to assign values for. So if I don't want this particular technician to be able to choose a template or to be able to assign the email of a user, I can just choose that. So whichever attributes do I want him to access, I can choose from this window right over here. And then I can hit OK. After that, this was all about attribute level restrictions. Now there is something called as OU based delegation. What do I mean by that? For that, I'll go to my help desk technician and edit it. Here it is, help desk technicians. So I select a particular technician from the list. Mine was HR_IT tech. I hit edit. Now you can see select OUs, and right now it is marked at all. So I want to delegate a particular OU to this technician. So I'll just click add OUs, and here I can specify which OUs the person should be able to access. Simple as that. What is the purpose of this OU level restriction basically? Well, suppose your organization is spread all over the globe and you have got OUs as per the regions. So if you want that the admin of a certain region should only manage one specific OU, the one containing users from his own region, then that can be accomplished. So he can have complete control but only on one OU. This is the purpose of this. Next, you see over here there is something called as visible groups. Suppose you have some top level security groups and you want to exclude them from help desk technicians access so that they cannot add or remove members. If you want to do that, you can very well do so. You just click add remove over here, and in excluded groups you can add whichever groups you want to exclude from this technician's access. Like over here, I'll just select some random groups as an example, say basic group 1. Okay. So now this person, this technician, won't be able to assign any group membership or remove any group membership from this particular group. Now here is another option, which is assign templates. If you want the technician to only use a particular template, you can do so. Just click add remove template and choose a particular template from the drop down menu. So that would be it. Now help desk delegation means delegating specific tasks to specific users in AD. But then those users might not have the rights to perform the assigned tasks in AD. How will this work out? For example, you want a technician to create AD users, but he doesn't have sufficient permissions in AD. So if a user doesn't have the necessary privileges in AD to perform a task, but nevertheless you want him to be able to do so, you can simply select this checkbox, impersonate as admin. If you do that, it's like enabling a proxy account for this user. The credentials that you have configured in AD Manager Plus's domain settings right over here, they will be used as a proxy account for this specific technician. So this is how he can perform the delegated task. His privileges in AD won't be elevated. A proxy account will be used as authentication token. Now this ensures complete security. And you might be wondering that if I enable a proxy account for a technician, will I be able to audit the changes made by him? Or everything that he does in AD will be reflected under the proxy account's name? Well, you can definitely audit every action done by this technician under his name only. How do you do that? Well, let me firstly save these changes. So how do you do that? You have something over here which is called as audit report. This is about complete change auditing. The description says it lists all the actions or operations performed by help desk technicians. So you can just select which help desk technician do you want the details from, and then the period, last 1 hour, 2 hours, custom period, and you can have a detailed report which will list the technician name, which action was performed, which action category did that fall in, then the timestamp, object name, domain, status, and then certain more details if you want. Like my user HR underscore IT Tech had created a user. Now I'm able to see every detail about that particular created user. The object name was Daniel P. The template that he chose was system template, and every other detail about it. Now, if you don't want to manually come and generate this report and yet you want to keep an eye on your help desk technicians, we have a functionality called as schedule reports. So if you select schedule reports, you can directly get all these reports emailed to you in your mailbox. I click schedule new reports. Here you can specify when do you want these reports to come, which email ID do you want these reports to come. Give the name to a scheduler, which help desk technician would you like to audit, for which period, and when do you want this report to be delivered, on what should be the period for that, daily, weekly, monthly, and everything. And also you can also specify which format should that report come in. So that's pretty easy and convenient. And after this, we have something called as admin audit reports. What are admin audit reports? It is a list of all the actions that are performed on help desk technicians and roles. For example, you see over here, I just now did managed HR underscore IT tech. What did I do? I modified it. Before that, what did I do? I created it. Before that, I created this particular role. So every action that I performed has been audited. This is real-time auditing and very effective. Then there is something called as the technician's report. This would list all the available help desk technicians along with the details such as delegated roles and administrative limits. These two are audit reports and this is a technicians only report. Now, so far, what have we learned is about delegation. This particular tab we have covered in today's session so far. We learned how to delegate a certain role to a certain technician. We learned that firstly we'll have to create a role which is nothing but a set of tasks. And after we have created that set of tasks, we'll have to map that onto a particular technician. Then we learn how to make a technician out of a normal AD user. And then we map the role onto him. And then we saw how the user can simply use our application to perform all the tasks that you assign them. So all this we saw. After that, we saw various reports. We saw 2 audit reports right over here. And then we saw the technician's report. We saw that we'll be able to generate a scheduled report if you want to. And also you can export these reports if you want into a format of your choice. So far we have covered the delegation part. Now the second module of today's workshop is going to be about workflow. Now what is workflow? First of all, let me go to this workflow tab. So workflow defines an order of execution for the important administrative tasks. So you can have multiple levels in a workflow. You can have requesters, reviewers, executors. So maximum you can have 4 levels and you can have any number of people in each level. For example, you can have 3 reviewers or 5 executors and so on and so forth. And then you can customize this number of levels obviously. And today, let's say we'll have 3 reviewers, 3 levels over here. One would obviously be the requester. Then let's say we can have 1 reviewer and 1 executor. So this all is customizable. So what requesters do is, as the name signifies, they raise a request and then that particular request is reviewed by a top level technician. And if you want, then again by an admin. And if the admin finds the request to be valid, he'll execute it. So this is like a review approval system. Only by going through this particular workflow can a task in AD be accomplished. Now for the requesters, we need to define the tasks for which they can raise requests, same as we did for delegation. We had to define a particular set of roles, a set of tasks that the technician was able to assign values for. Similarly here, we'll define the tasks for which the requesters can raise requests. These are called as requester roles. Now how it generally works in an organization is the HR personnel create an Excel sheet with user details and then the admins create the AD accounts. So what AD Manager Plus lets you do is your HR personnel, instead of submitting an Excel sheet, they can themselves enter the details in AD Manager Plus in a simple web page layout. They can raise a request that these particular users need to be created in AD, and you can then have a technician review the request, and then maybe an admin can execute it if he finds the request valid. So this is the deal with workflow. If you don't like the concept of delegation, that is just right away creating an account in AD without any supervision, you can have workflow in place. So it goes through a particular mechanism. So to execute this particular task, we'll again firstly we'll create a requester role, and then we'll map it onto a requester. How do I do that? I have something here called as requester roles. I have certain predefined requester roles over here. I'm going to create a new role altogether. I can assign a name to this. Let's say I call this HR department role. Now I've given a name to this. I can specify which tasks should this role contain. Let's say for now I want this particular requester role to have just the create users task. That's it. I can choose obviously from all these different options, but for now create users would do the deal for me. So I'm going to save this role. It is called as HR department role right over here. Now once I've done that, I'll have to add a requester. I go here which says requesters, and these are the predefined ones, but I want to add a new requester altogether. So I'll just hit browse. Say I want a user called as HR to be able to raise request tickets. So this user HR, I'll just search through the search functionality. Here he is, and he'll be added as a requester. Again, I'll have to select the requester role. The one that I created was called the HR department role. I select that. I can again specify which OUs, but again I'm going to leave it simply as all. And then I save this. So successfully added the requester. Now the requester role was created, the requester was added. Now all your HR will need to do, all your requester will need to do is to fill in the first and the last name of the users, and the account will be created. For this, you can create a template specific to this HR. How do we do that? For those of you who were present in the first workshop, we learned about user creation templates, and you can again have a look at it as I walk you through it. I go to AD Management tab and then to User Creation Templates. Here I'll create a new template for this particular HR. Now suppose, okay, for this particular HR, okay, let me name this template something. Let me call it HR1 for now. And I'll customize the layout of this template. So I go to enable drag and drop, and I can just remove some tabs altogether. If I don't want my HR to struggle with all these tabs, I just want him to provide just first name and last name, and that's it. So I can just remove whichever tabs I want from the layout. Or again, if I want this requester to not be able to edit certain specific fields, I can just delete those fields altogether. For example, initials, right now I'm deleting it. If I want to bring it back, all I have to do is simply drag and drop it wherever I want to. So this is it. This is how you customize a layout. And after you are done, you disable drag and drop, and then you can specify the value of the password before if you want. For example, you are the admin, so you want to be able to know the password, and you don't want the HR to assign any password to the users. So what you do is you assign a password in this template, and whichever users are created using this template will all have the same password. After I've done that, I can simply save this template. Now I have created a template. I'll have to map this template onto my user. How do I do that? I just go to workflow. So here we have requesters. I'll simply edit my requester. This HR was the requester that I created. I'm going to the edit icon. And here I see the assign templates option, add/remove templates. Okay, I had actually previously created a template that was perfect for an HR, so I'm just going to go ahead and choose that one. It is called as template for the HR, this one. So I only want him to be able to access this particular template. Now because I want this template to be marked default, I also click here and until this green tick comes, which signifies that this is the default operation. I do that and then I click OK. Now I save the changes. So what I did was I created a workflow requester role. Then I created a requester. Then I mapped the role onto the requester. And then I created a template and I mapped the template onto the requester. And now what I'm going to show you is I'm going to sign out and I'm going to show you how this console will look like to this HR, this particular requester. I know this person's credentials. I'm just going to do a domain authentication again. Now see, because I had only delegated enabled him to be able to raise requests for only single user creation, only that shows up over here. Let us do something over here. Let us just raise a request. So I'm going to raise a request for this particular user that I create. I can specify the priority for this. Do I want this to be on high priority, medium, low? Let's say I'm going to select normal. I can specify a subject. I have to actually, this is a mandatory attribute. Say I want it to be create user. This is a subject for now. So I just provide the values of these various attributes. I can just write a first name and a last name. For example, I create this user, Stuti M. So this is all I needed to do and everything else got auto-populated. As you can see, the password also is auto-populated because of the template that we had provided. As you can see over here, here is only template for the HR. Now, even if I click it, I don't have a drop-down menu because this was marked as the only template. So this is how you just have all the attribute level restrictions and the template restrictions and everything. So this is all that your HR will need to do. Just provide the first name and the last name here in the general tab. And instead of create user, you can see it shows create request. That is because this user is only able to create a request which will be executed upon further inspection. So as you can see, Stuti M has been created and I'm now going to sign out and sign in back as the admin. AD Manager Plus Authentication. Now I'll have you know that by default, an admin is a reviewer and an executor by default. So I created a requester and this admin, me, will be the reviewer and executor by default. So I can review and execute this particular request. So I go to workflow. Here I'll have an option called as all requests. So over there I can simply select the request that this user created. Here it is, all requests. Okay, this is the request ID created by HR. Create user was the subject. It is raised, open. Okay, so if I want to do something to it, if I want to view this request, I simply click on the subject. I see various details about this. and I want to see which object did this user want me to be able to create. So I hit select object, show object, sorry. And here I see, okay, that this user has to be created in AD with the first name Stuti, the last name M. The password has already been assigned. Now, if I want, I am the reviewer, if I want to be able to have some more attributes in place, if I think that only these would not suffice, what I can do is I can change the template, because this template for the HR was only for the HR, and I actually have the liberty to choose whichever template I want to. So over here, I can change that particular template, and after I change the template, I can have more fields over here, and I can assign values for all of them. The page is taking a while to load. Please bear with me. So what I did over here was I changed the template. I selected a mailbox enabled template now. Now for the HR, that template had only 3 tabs, but for me, it'll have all of these tabs, and I can provide whichever values I want to. Say I want to have some contact information in place. So I do that, and if I'm done with all the changes now, I click OK. So now I'm okay with all the changes that this user has, and I want this user to be created. So what I'll do is I'll again go to this subject, and I can either review it or I can reject it. But I want to review it because I'm okay with the changes. I can give the comments here, or I can leave it blank, hit OK. And this means that the request has been reviewed by me. Now, because I also happen to be the executor, I get this option again. So either I can execute the request or I can reject it. Now, because I have already seen the request, I would like to execute it. Execution of the request in progress. Now, this would create the user. Now again, if this is all console based, if you actually define something called as the notification rules in the application, you'll get emails, direct emails into your email IDs, and then you can simply go to that particular URL, and directly from your emails you can review this particular request. This is what the notification rules look like. So you can configure the settings for getting notifications. When do you want to receive notifications? When request is created, reviewed, when. Then you can customize which message goes to you. You can have macros picked up. You want the subject name over here in the message. You want the workflow status, whatever you want. And then you can save it. And then you have this notify link over here, which will enable you to choose from certain more settings, which emails, which technician to notify, so on. So today, what all did we learn? We learned about delegation, we learned about workflow, we saw how can you make a simple AD user a technician, we saw how you can create a particular role and then map that onto the technician so that the technician can perform all these tasks securely. We saw about the impersonate as admin option, which enables a proxy account for this particular technician, and then the technician would be able to execute the tasks despite not having the relevant permissions in AD. So after that, we saw the workflow module, in which we saw how to create requester roles, how to create requesters, how to map a role onto a requester, then about reviewers, executors, how to configure the entire workflow system, how to have the number of levels over here. Maximum you can have 4 levels. So we today had 3 levels in place. All this we learned. And for the next topic, next workshop that is going to be held same day, same time next week, we'll be studying about reports. We'll see how using AD Manager Plus you can get all the vital information about your AD without writing even a single line of PowerShell scripts. All GUI based, and then also the cherry on the top is that you are able to manage from your reports. So your users, your computers, everything you can manage directly from the reports. All that we are going to cover in the coming session next week, same day, same time. Thank you so much for attending this workshop. This was Stuti Mehrotra. Have a nice day.